So today we're talking about something that doesn't always come up during those exciting house hunting trips to Hendersonville. We're diving into the hidden costs of relocating here, the things that might surprise you after you've made the move, and trust us, you'll want to stick around to the end so that you aren't caught off guard.
Exactly. Look, we absolutely love living here and we want you to love it too. But part of our job is making sure you come in with eyes wide open. These aren't deal breakers, they're just things you need to budget for. Hi, we are a real estate team proudly serving the upstate of South Carolina and Western North Carolina, from Greenville to Asheville and everything in between.
We've helped buyers relocate from all over the country to our scenic and friendly towns and cities. So let's get back to it.
A lot of people moving to Hendersonville are looking for true one-level living. That means no stairs, everything on one floor. Makes total sense, especially if you're planning to age in place. But here's the reality. True ranch-style homes and one-level communities in desirable areas can command a real premium. They're in high demand and limited supply.
Yeah, so a lot of buyers end up considering alternatives, maybe split foyer homes or homes with an unfinished or maybe a finished basement or multi-level mountain properties. And that's totally fine if it fits your budget and your current needs. But down the road, if stairs become an issue, you might be looking at remodeling costs to add a main level primary suite or install an elevator or maybe a chairlift. So those can be costly items.
Exactly. So if one-level living is truly a long-term priority, it's worth paying a bit more upfront to get it rather than planning to renovate later. We help our clients think through these trade-offs all the time based on their timeline and their goals.
And finally, let's talk about travel. A lot of people don't think about this, but once you move to the mountains, your travel patterns may change. So you might be doing more weekend getaways, more road trips, and you'll probably have more family and friends visiting you because, let's be honest, everyone wants to come and visit you in the mountains.
And that means more fuel costs, more wear and tear on your vehicle, and sometimes you're putting family up in local hotels or short-term rentals like Airbnb when your guest room isn't large, especially when the family comes to visit. All of that adds up over time and is something worth keeping in mind as you think about your overall cost of living here.
Now, let's talk a little bit about utilities that aren't as straightforward as flipping a switch. So a lot of homes in Henderson County, especially outside the city limits, are on a well and a septic system instead of municipal water and sewer. So that means you're responsible for the maintenance, inspections, and any repairs that might come up for those items. So during an Arctic blast a couple of years back, where the high temps were in the single digits, a lot of wellheads froze up and surprised many homeowners. So it turns out these wells did not have enough insulation or a heating element. So when that happens, you lose your running water until it gets warmer and is corrected.
And if something goes wrong with your well pump or your septic system, those repairs aren't cheap. We're talking potentially thousands of dollars. If you need to replace a well pump, one of the most costly operational parts of the well, it can cost upwards of $5,000. Same thing with propane if your home uses it for heating or cooking. You're scheduling deliveries, monitoring your tank levels, and budgeting for those fills, especially in winter when prices can fluctuate.
Some neighborhoods also have community water or sewer systems, and those come with their own fees and assessments. So you're not dealing with the city, but you're also not entirely on your own. So it's a bit of a hybrid situation. And the costs can vary widely depending on the system and how it's managed as well.
And then we have HOA fees and amenity costs. If you're buying in a planned community, especially one with a pool, clubhouse, fitness center, golf course, all that fun stuff, you need to understand the full picture. There are the regular monthly or annual HOA dues, but then there might be club initiation fees, capital assessments, minimum spending requirements, or separate fees for certain amenities like social club. These are simply lifestyle choices that you may want and that carries additional costs.
Okay, this next one is huge. Homeowners insurance in the mountains. Your premiums here can be affected by things you might not have dealt with before. The age of your roof is a big one. Actually, this is happening all over the country as insurance companies tighten their underwriting policies. If it's over 15 or 20 years old, some insurance companies won't cover you or they'll charge you significantly more if you have an older roof.
And if you live off a steep road with winding access and switchbacks to reach your home, which some mountain properties do here, that can actually impact your rates because it affects emergency vehicle access. Same thing with how far you are from the nearest fire hydrant. The further away, the higher your premium could be. The good news is that we haven't seen homeowners insurance be canceled or with super high premiums like what's going on in Florida and California recently.
We always tell our buyers to get an insurance quote before they finalize their offer because sometimes the insurance costs on a particular property can change the math more than you expect. So you don't want to fall in love with the house and then find out that the insurance is going to be double what you budgeted for.
And while we're talking about home costs, let's touch on radon and moisture control. If your home has a basement or a crawl space, a lot of the construction around here are those, you should absolutely test for radon. If levels are high, you're looking at a mitigation system, which typically runs between like $1,500 to maybe $3,000 on the higher end. Plus, basements and crawl space in our climate and mountain slopes often need dehumidifiers running year round. And sometimes you need vapor barriers or drainage improvements to keep moisture issues at bay. And to be honest with you, moisture intrusion is one of the most common inspection issues we see and have to deal with in our area.
Here's one that's become even more important over the last few decades: internet connectivity. If you're working remotely or you just need reliable high-speed internet, this is something that you can absolutely need to research before you buy. Coverage in town is generally great, but once you get outside Hendersonville proper, it can really be hit or miss.
We've got pockets with excellent fiber, and then we've got pockets where your only options are really satellite or cellular hotspots, which can be much more expensive and less reliable. So if the internet speed matters to you, make sure to check availability at your specific address before you make an offer. We can help you research that before it becomes a problem.
You can't always rely on what the seller tells you. You actually need to check with the providers yourself. We've seen situations where someone says, oh yeah, we have great internet, but they're using something that won't work for your needs, or it has been sunset by the provider like AT&T is doing with their DSL services. So better to verify up front than be disappointed after you move in.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that can be a deal breaker for remote workers.
All right, now let's talk about what we call lifestyle creep. Western North Carolina has an amazing lifestyle. Breweries, festivals, farmers markets, incredible hiking and biking trails. It's part of why people really move here. But all of that can quietly add up in your budget.
We've had clients that went out to breweries with the food trucks on the weekend, hit up all those festivals, bought gear for hiking and biking, and realized that they needed a reality check on their budget. None of these things are mandatory, of course, but when you're enjoying everything this area has to offer, it really is easy for those costs to creep up month after month.
And then there's what we call community integration costs. So when you're building a new social life here, you might join a gym, take some classes, get memberships to local art organizations, maybe join a wine club, or buy season tickets to the community theater. Individually, none of these items are particularly expensive, but when you start stacking them up, you could easily be spending a few $100 extra each month.
Yeah, we want you to get plugged into the community. We just want you to budget for it appropriately and not be surprised by the cost. Because the last thing we want is for anyone to feel financially stretched after they made this big move. And speaking of big expenses, here's one that surprises many relocating from other states, particularly northern states.
And that's your vehicle registration. North Carolina has what's called tag and tax together, which means your annual vehicle property tax is bundled right into your registration renewal. So when that shows up, it's going to feel a lot bigger than what you might be used to in other states.
And that property tax is based on the value of your vehicle. So if you're driving something newer or higher end, that bill can be pretty substantial. For example, if your car is valued, let's say at $35,000, then your tax would likely be just under $400 for the year based on a Henderson County address. The rate changes slightly based on your address and county and the age of your vehicle. We've had clients from states without vehicle property tax who are generally shocked by this. It's not a hidden fee, it's right there on the bill, but it's definitely something to factor into your annual budget. These taxes apply to other vehicles too, like RVs and boats and motorcycles.
And plus, here in North Carolina, you're also required to get an annual vehicle safety inspection before you can renew your registration. So it can be done at most car service centers, and it usually takes under 15 minutes and typically also costs less than $15. If you live in Buncombe County, you will also need the emissions inspection, which adds about another $15 to the cost. But regardless, North Carolina vehicle inspections are still another appointment and another expense, usually around $30 to $40 per vehicle on an annual basis. But you just need to remember that every year.
And if you're coming from a state without annual inspections, it's just one more thing on your to-do list. It's not a huge deal, but it's worth knowing up front so you can plan accordingly.
They also do that around your birthday, so it's a kind of an unfun birthday
Happy
surprise.
birthday.
Okay, next up, property taxes. Now, you're definitely asking about property taxes when you're looking at homes, but here's what trips people up. We have layered property taxes. So you've got your county tax rate, and if you're inside Hendersonville city limits, you'll also pay a city rate on top of that. And in some cases, there are special district assessments too.
And the city rate can add a noticeable amount to your annual tax bill. So when you're comparing properties, make sure you're asking whether it's inside or outside city limits, or even in another town's jurisdiction in the county like Laurel Park, Mills River, etc., because that can make a difference. We always run those numbers for our clients so there are no surprises at closing or when the first tax bill arrives.
So look, we know this was a lot of information and we don't want to scare anyone away from moving to Hendersonville. We genuinely love it here and we think you will too. It is also more affordable than many other parts of the country. But part of our job as your local real estate agent is making sure that you have the full picture before you make this big decision.
Exactly. Every single one of these costs is manageable when you know about it up front and you plan for it. The problems come when people are surprised 6 months after moving here and suddenly feel like they're stretched thinner than they were expecting. And we don't want that for you.
So if you're thinking about relocating to the Hendersonville area, please reach out to us. We'll walk you through all of this in detail based on your specific situation, your budget, and the type of property you're looking for. We can run the numbers, connect with your lenders and insurance agents, and make sure you're coming in with realistic expectations.
And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We're constantly putting out content to help people who are considering a move to Western North Carolina. Find the link in the video description if you're ready to book your one-on-one consultation and get started.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone.
We'll see you in the mountains.